After the glorious sunshine of the Nürburgring, we're greeted by the rain, the gloom and the grey skies. We are at the Lausitzring. We weren't expecting this when they said we were coming here in August. Hello everybody, welcome to round 5 of the ADAC GT Masters. The drivers fighting for the title of German GT champion. As you can see, the rain is falling. The temperature is pretty high, 19.4 degrees centigrade, but it has been raining pretty well all morning. This week, well, it's been something of a heat wave here at the Lausitzring, and yesterday in testing and in free practice, glorious weather. But today, race day, the rain has started falling, and it's really messed things up a bit for some of the drivers. It's scrambled up the qualifying. And it's Christian Engelhart who has qualified on pole position in the Team Sportwagen Technik Porsche, looking for his first win of the season, the 2020 champion. Loving these wet conditions apparently, as indeed does the Porsche. That is the car that Christian Engelhart will be driving for Team Sportwagen Technik alongside Chen Guven. Something of a baptism of fire for Guven though. That is the points championship situation at the moment. It's Raffaele Marciello who leads the way. He was 4th going into the Nürburgring 2 weeks ago in the point standings, but a first, a second and 2 pole positions has seen him shoot to the top of the point standings, and he is in a very strong position for the title. Having said that, a really difficult qualifying session this morning sees him all the way down in 9th position. Adam Weller, it really is game on for the 2022 season championship.
Well, we thought coming out of the Nürburgring, Brian, that perhaps Raffaele Marciello was about to start a rich vein of form, but that hasn't seemingly been the case, at least in qualifying. I gather he didn't have the most successful of Thursdays or Fridays here at the Lausitzring either, qualifying this morning in what was, I'd say, largely greasy conditions. Didn't really go his way either in the 48 car, of course, now joined by Daniel Juncadella. So Engelhart and Guven from that pole position slot will be fancying their chances at closing in the deficit to the Swiss.
Yes, it has been musical chairs in the man-filtered Team Langraf Mercedes, hasn't it? We started the season with Jonathan Aberdeen. He was alongside Marciello at Oschersleben and Red Bull. I think it's fair to say that it wasn't a relationship that was made in heaven. Then Lorenzo Ferrari came into that seat alongside Raffaele Marciello at Zandvoort. Then we have Mauro Engel, the Nürburgring last 2 weeks ago, and now we have Daniel Juncadella. And we were saying this earlier, that it seems like a very logical partnership. Juncadella and Marciello have been very strong together. In fact, they won the Spa 24-hour race together only a few weeks ago. Juncadella, who had been alongside Jan Marszałkowski in the Drago Racing Team ZVO, jumping across to Marciello. I would say the partnership is as strong as the Mauro Engel-Marciello partnership.
I wonder what Raffaele Marciello would have made of it if you told him at the end of 2012 that one day he and Daniel Juncadella would be working together. Back then they were title rivals in FIA Formula 3. Juncadella came out on top that time. But now they are a united front to try and get Marciello his Drivers' Championship, along with, of course, Landgraf, who would love to get that trophy on their mantle.
You're looking there at the number 71 Paul Motorsport Lamborghini Huracan. Max Paul has been something of a superstar in many of the testing and free practice sessions here at Lausitzring this week. He's qualified 3rd on the grid, but you feel that the weather maybe will not favour the Lamborghini as much as maybe some of the other manufacturers.
Yes, I have heard before from a couple of drivers based back home in the UK that Lamborghini can be a bit of an adventure in the wet conditions. Of course, we get a lot of those in the UK. But we will have to see whether or not Max Paul can use his familiarity with car and track to be up there. There is another new face and another new colour scheme.
Yes, Marvin Dietz, who jumps into the vacant Daniel Juncadella seat, and it's great to welcome Marvin back to the GT Masters. He is a previous race winner in GT Masters. He won at Sachsenring in 2020. He is the 2015 ADAC Formula 4 champion. He won that with 8 wins. He's also doing double duty with prototypes this weekend, but this very much in his focus. Jan Marszałkowski well, he's probably a little bit nervous when he sees these weather conditions. The last time it was greasy, it did not end well, but Marszałkowski is an absolute rising star in GT Masters. And I think that with Marvin Dienst alongside him as a partner, in a way, it takes the pressure off Jan Marszałkowski and allows him maybe just to spread his wings a little bit more.
Possibly, yes, I can see the logic behind that. Certainly Marszałkowski hasn't had it easy so far this season. It's been a year of trials and tribulations for him, and I think everyone in the paddock would breathe a collective sigh of relief on his behalf if he gets a good solid weekend here at the Lausitzring. It's such a dent on a driver's confidence if you do have bad weekend after bad weekend. Of course, Zandvoort, we saw what happened there in the slippery conditions on the formation lap for race 1. Barely got 4 corners in, did Lucas Stoltz even at the Nürburgring at one point. It's been a rough time for the 8 car, and they'll be looking to try and match the form we've seen out of this car, the number 4, Fabian Schiller, starting this one from P9.
Well, starting on the 3rd row is what Marvin Dienst is, so it should be a good position. There is the car that we've been talking about, 10th, not 9th. I'm reading the grid the wrong way around. Raffaele Marciello, he's got an awful lot of work to do from there. He is leading the points championship. Jules Gounon and Fabian Schiller are 16 points behind him, but they are starting in front of him on the track, so that could be exciting. Of course, Raffaele Marciello and Jules Gounon were teammates at the aforementioned Spa 24, but I don't think there'll be any love lost between them here because there is a championship at stake. Kim Louis Schramm, he was in the wars a little bit at Nürburgring last time out, and he will be looking for a good weekend here. Of the other parish notices, before we get the engines running, we have Juuso Puhaka joining us in the Mad Panda Mercedes. Great to welcome him. The 23-year-old Finnish driver who is alongside Ezequiel Perez-Campagne. We had Maxi Goertz in that seat at the Nürburgring, but great to have Puhaka here, and hopefully he will be here for the rest of the season, a real talent in GT3 racing. We also welcome to the grid Dynamic Motorsports. Great to welcome a new team. They're doing this as a guest appearance with the potential of maybe doing a full season in 2023. They may be guesting, but they are experienced pioneers in GT racing at Dynamic Motorsport, and they have 2 great drivers in Klaus Bachler. We welcome Klausy Mousy back to the grid in 2022, and Adrian Delina, 2 really talented drivers.
Yeah, 2 drivers with a lot of experience under the hats, and Dynamic Motorsports team that often does well in the rain as well, so keep an eye on the green and black Porsche. We got a look at Frankie Bird there in the sister Landgraf Mercedes, the second of the Man Filter Mambas. I tell you what, Man Filter is the colour to have here in the stands. I actually must say it's like having a Liverpool Man United game, except it's not red, it's all yellow. The Man Filter hats are absolutely everywhere as we look at Joel Sturm in the Allied Porsche.
Talking to Elias Seppänen yesterday, he said a top 10 finish would be a result for them. They came so close to making it on to the podium at the Nürburgring, but for a visit to the penalty box. The grid girls are on the track, and very, very shortly we will be bringing you the grid lineup for this, which is race 9 of a 14-race season for the ADAC GT Masters. It is round 5 of the 7 rounds this season, where we will discover the identity of the 2020 champion. So, taking a look at the grid, it is Christian Engelhart and Einchan Guven scoring their first pole position of the year, with Patrick Niederhauser alongside Max Paul and Albert Costa Balboa line up on row 2, and then Marvin Dienst and Consta Lapalainen on row 3 of the grid. Row 4, Arthur Rougier and Tim Zimmermann in the Audi, and then on row 5 is Fabian Schiller, Raffaele Marciello, the 2 championship title fighters. Also, Kim Louis Schramm and Thierry Vermeulen towards the front end of the grid on row 6. Row 7, Yusufa Vega and another of the Yellow Mambas with Frank Bird at the wheel. Adrian Delina guesting alongside Joel Sturm on row 8, and on row 9, Florian Spengler and Niklas Kruten. The BMW struggling a little bit here in these conditions. Ezequiel Perez-Campagne and Simon Riker on row 10, and then on row 11, Jesse Krohn, the other of the BMWs, and Salmon Ovega in the Monster Class by Land Audi. Has been a challenging qualifying session for the BMWs.
Yeah, both of the BMs seem to struggle, and that's been the case in a few of the qualifying sessions so far this year. The BMW has looked stronger to me on race pace by and large this season. We'll have to see what Cruton can do on the first lap, and Jesse Krohn for that matter, both there on the final 3 rows of the grid. We've had the bulletin up that there will be 2 formation laps for this as well, for this race, and that is pretty much standard protocol when we've got conditions like this. Gives drivers a chance to see where the danger zones may be before they bear down on them at well over 200 kilometers an hour.
Yes, in 2020, when the season was much later because of COVID, of course, we had a lot of races in October and November. It almost became the norm, 2 formation laps, as the instructions are given for the drivers to start their engines. But in these conditions, I should think both of those laps will be critical to get heat into the tyres, into the brakes. Needless to say, it is a wet race, wet weather tyres. There's an awful lot of smoke there. Now that doesn't look to me like that's anything that should be happening. Now, where is that coming from? Is that from the dynamic car, or is it from the yellow Mamba?
I think that might be the Allied Porsche, but could be the Allied Porsche is a bit further back. It is, as I think you're quite right in saying, actually either the Mamba or the dynamic car. I have to keep an eye on that to see whether it's still the case as the cars are rolling. Sometimes in these wet conditions, you do get a bit more smoke and steam, but that does look excessive and rather problematic.
Yes, that doesn't look like anything that I've seen before on the grid. The car's lined up Le Mans style, so we're on the rolling lap, the first of 2 now formation laps, and we will hopefully see who it is who is putting that smoke out as we peer from behind the green flag. Well, it's not the first of the yellow Mambas. It's not the second of the yellow Mambas. Well, it looks like maybe it was just getting started, maybe a bit of oil overfill. Who knows, but it looks like we're all running. So the car's on the first of their 2 formation laps. We are at the Lausitzring. We're using the short course. We're in the middle of the tri-oval, but we use sections of the tri-oval, including most of the home straight and part of the second straight of this legendary circuit as well. It is 3.478 kilometers around. That equates to about 2.16 miles. 12 turns, 7 to the left and 5 to the right. Rather unusually, though, the cars run in an anti-clockwise direction, which can play all sorts of tricks on a driver's neck.
You can. You do tend to train for clockwise because that is an overwhelming majority of what we see when it comes to quote-unquote road courses. But rovals, given most oval circuits run anti-clockwise, will also go anti-clockwise. That's not always the case. Indianapolis runs the opposite direction in road course configuration, but no such luck here at the Lausitzring for the drivers. They've had to prepare a little bit differently, perhaps, in the gym in the weeks leading up to this one, and believe me, they do all in fact hit the gym. No doubt that racing drivers are athletes. There is a huge training regimen that goes into the time between events, and certainly all of the work on reactions and being as prepared as possible suddenly seems worthwhile when they're in a near 600 horsepower GT3 carbon fiber rocket ship in these kind of conditions.
Train hard in between the races, as indeed do the commentators. Looking at this grid, this is going to be an interesting one for Christian Engelhart and for Ian Chen-Guven. They have been really at the sharp end of the championship all year long. They had a fairly torrid time in race 2 at the Nürburgring, but up until then have been finishing in the top half of the pack. They will be looking to get their championship back on track because they will now be just 21 points behind Raffaele Marciello, and they obviously have track position. They are 10 places ahead on the grid. So this is a great opportunity for Engelhart and Guven to not only pick up their first win of the year, but also to get back into the championship hunt. They came so close to a really good score at Zandvoort, but for the transmission giving out with 2 corners of the race remaining. This is the view from Raffaele Marciello as he now looks at the car in front that he will soon be fighting. Fabian Schiller at the wheel of that one. The cars are on the second of their formation laps, and now the time is coming when the drivers will be gridding up side by side.
And the clock has started running down on the race duration as well. We do 1 hour plus 1 lap, but when we have 2 formation laps, the clock typically starts to run down as we're on this second formation lap. So I think in reality, it's going to be something like 57.5 minutes of racing for our teams and drivers. A little bit less time to withstand if you're one of the drivers that wants to get out as soon as we get to that 25-minute marker and the pit window opens.
Up until Nürburgring 2 weeks ago, we had not seen a safety car in a GT Masters race in 2022. Well, we soon put that right, didn't we? If we can get through this without a safety car, I will eat the proverbial hat. You can watch me tucking in later. The cars are gridding up side by side. The tension is rising. The heat is in the tyres, well, as much as they're going to get in these wet conditions. And now we get ready. The cars circulating around onto the banked turn 11 and very shortly onto turn 12. And then we will be onto the pit straight. We are getting ready for race 9 of a 14 race season for the ADAC GT Masters, fighting for the title of German GT Championship. If you've never seen this before, hold on to your hat. This will be spectacular. It is the ADAC GT Masters. The red lights are on, the green lights are on. We are go. Christian Engelhart, what a start, leading the pack in towards turn 1. Niederhauser on the outside, tiptoeing into that tight downhill section as they work their way around the first corner. There's a couple of cars going a bit wide, but it looks like they've all made it around turn 1. Christian Engelhart from Patrick Niederhauser, Costa Balboa, great start from him, up into 3rd place. Max Paul down into 4th place. The rest of the cars coming through. I
think Lapalainen lost a couple of places there in the second of the Emil Frey Lamborghinis, but by and large, everyone has made it through without adverse drama onto the back straight of the oval for the first time. They fan out wide at what's the widest part of the circuit, the run through turn 6. They're going 3-4 wide through this corner. Is everyone still in the same order? Is everyone still in the right direction? To the latter, I can confirm. To the former, I only want to speculate.
Yeah, we'll wait until they cross the timing line before we see that. Great start from Tim Zimmerman, who's worked his way up as well. And Fabian Schiller is in P9.
He's in the gravel, more specifically. I think we saw him go sideways there into the crowd of cars. Now, is everyone okay? That was Sturm off circuit coming into turn 8. We've also seen Schiller go down the order. There is Sturm going rally crossing. Dramas, as one would anticipate in the first lap. Schiller is still going. Thankfully, he didn't get collected, but he is going into pit lane with damage there. Yeah, the back bumper looks to be hanging off. This will be very significant in the championship. Is exactly what Marciello wanted to see. Fabian Schiller into the pits. Jules Gounon is going to have a massive task if that car can rejoin the race, and maybe he's coming into retirement. Christian Engelhart leading the way, 1.2 seconds on the first lap ahead of Patrick Niederhauser. Albert Costa Balboa into 3rd place. Keep an eye on him, and Max Paul in 4th. Look at Marciello. He's up to 6th place already. Marciello, and a great start from Tim Zimmerman in the defending Monteplas by Land Motorsport Audi. So Zimmerman is 5th, Marciello is 6th. We're looking back from Marciello at Constant Lapalainen. Marvin Deast in there as well. He's in 8th place. Yusufa Vega in 9th, and Arthur Rougier in 10th place. The cars coming through the mist, the headlights blazing, right into the pits we come. This is the work being done on Fabian Schiller. It doesn't look like they're going to retire the car, but the aerodynamics are not going to be quite the same, are they? Yes, it shouldn't be too big of a penalty in these conditions. The aero not as important anyway, but here you see what happened. It was actually in the gravel where the car's bodywork was ripped up. He just lost the rear end of the car going through turn 7, the long sweeping turn 7. Into the gravel trap he went, and now down to the bottom of the order he is. I think he may have had a tyre issue as well. It looked like they might have swapped out the left rear.
The timing screens are saying there's an investigation between the number 22 car of Joel Sturm and also of Frankie Bird, but I think that is no, that's not that one. It's on turn 8, so that was the incident that saw Joel Sturm go to the back, but it wasn't the one that saw Fabian Schiller drop into the back. Right, on board with Raffaele Marciello. He is looking to go forwards. Ahead of him is Tim Zimmerman. Along the pit straight they come. Is he going to find a route past? I say picking up a slipstream. I'm not sure there's much in these conditions, but Marciello putting the pressure on into turn 1. Keep an eye on Marvin Deist behind. Marvin Deist, a real fighter. They're two Mercs together on the track, but Marciello now tracking every move of Tim Zimmerman.
Yes, he's been going out wide at the first corner for the last couple of laps. He's going exceedingly deep on the brakes into the very tight turn 1. Lapalainen making a move a couple of positions further back as well there. I think that's actually, no, that was Ovega trying to get around Lapalainen and failing to do so. Yusuf Ovega in the Land Motorsport Audi trying to make up some places on Consta Lapalainen, but yet to achieve it. Would say as well, a nod to Schubert Motorsport. Nicholas Cruton up to 12th place, so the BMW has sived through the pack in that first lap.
This is a replay of the start, the roar of the cars echoing around the stands of the Lausitzring, and you can see that Engelhart was away and gone, and it wasn't a jump start or anything like that. He was just very quick out of the blocks, looking for that first win of the 2022 season. Of course, he is, or was, the 2020 champion in ADAC GT Masters. Einchan Guven, new to GT Masters this year, looking for a first title. And there we saw that the dynamic Porsche had spun to the back of the pack. Adrian Delina at the wheel, and he was a long way back. He's actually doing quite well. He's made his way back up to 19th since this incident you're looking at here.
Yes, I think the instant investigation was to see whether or not he fell or whether he was pushed. I think he did fall. It just happened that Florian Spengler was very, very close behind him when it all happened and used some Jedi mind tricks to avoid any form of contact. This is an onboard. I think that was out of turn 7. This is around the outside at turn 1 with Raffaele Marciello. You can see everyone getting physical. There's no way we were going to keep 22 cars pristine on this first lap. And sure enough, there was some argy-bargy and door banging and swapping of decals throughout the order, unsurprisingly. I think the biggest surprise of all is only one car ended up coming into the pits at the end of lap 1.
And we haven't had the safety car yet. Oh, no, I won't say that. So, if you are new to GT Masters, then you won't know, and we're about to tell you, there is a mandatory pit stop. 25 minutes into the race, every car, every driver will have a 10-minute window that opens 25 minutes into the race. That window, they will be required to come into the pits for a mandatory stop and driver change. So we keep an eye on the clock. When it gets to 35 minutes to go, that is when the pit window will open. There is a minimum pit stop time of 65 seconds as well. Other thing to note is that the car that has had all the damage, Fabian Schiller, to remind you that he is carrying a 20-kilogram success penalty. This car here is carrying a 10-kilogram success penalty on account of what happened at Nürburgring, i.e. finishing first and second. The Points Championship in ADAC GT Masters has a habit of flipping around very quickly. The way this race is shaping up, it could be about to flip around again because many of the drivers at the sharp end are having a torrid time. The driver who is going forwards, though, is Raffaele Marciello, but Marvin Deist has found a route past him. Marvin Deist up into 6th place. You have to get up pretty early in the morning to find a route past Raffaele Marciello.
You do. It's not often it happens, and he'll be thinking, hold on, aren't you the guy that's replacing my teammate? Should I have had you instead? Marvin Deist with a solid move there for 6th place. Deist inheriting the seat from Danny Juncadella, who is now sharing the 48 Landgraf Manfilter Mamba Mercedes with Raffaele Marciello this weekend. The top 4 cars are going a lot quicker than just about everyone else out there. They're all lapping in the mid-high 37s, and I will say as well, even though it's little consolation to Jules Gounon, Schiller is running around in the low 38s as well, which would be top 5, top 6 pace. So if anything, at least the car isn't too badly damaged.
I'm sure that'll be of no consolation at all at this point. One thing that will be of interest is that the lead is coming down. Patrick Niederhauser has halved the gap between himself and Christian Engelhart. So Engelhart, in the Jus Sportwagen Technique Porsche, was leading by well over a second, 1.2 at one point, is now down to 6/10. So Niederhauser is going forwards. Albert Costa Balboa is still very much there as well in 3rd place. Took us Jack Aitken yesterday, and he said, I'm not sure that we are still in the championship hunt. If things stay as they are now, they will be back in the championship hunt. You see a graphic there, race laps of Wales in Africa. And for every race lap completed, BWT, in association with the ADAC, are donating €4 to the Be Water mission, providing clean drinking water in mainly rural areas of the Gambia and Tanzania. Last year, we raised nearly 60 grand, and we're aiming to beat that this year. For every lap completed by every car, €4 is added. So every time a car crosses the line, that total goes up, and we like the look of that. Part of the ADAC really pushing forwards with climate issues and with social issues. Great to see. As we look back from Raffaele Marciello at Konsta-Lappalainen in 8th place behind him.
Yes, there is a good battle here between the two Lamborghinis, I think, potentially as well. The two Emil Frey cars have ended up together. Lappalainen and Ruggier, they're stalking in 8th and 9th places. Yusufa Vega down in 10th place. Marciello clearly pushing on, as is Lappalainen. You don't want to run too wide, though, out of that turn 7. The gravel has caught out a great many so far this weekend. I'm actually just seeing that Florian Spengler, I think we caught it briefly at the back of shot, has gone off circuit there as I was saying that. A great example of what can happen at turn 7 if you step out a little out of line. Lappalainen is actually looking a bit quicker, I'd say, than Marciello, who doesn't seem to be in the best of situations at the moment. Doesn't look like the wet weather setup is quite there underneath him.
No, it doesn't. Of course, all the setting up was done in the dry during this week. Now, we know that Marciello is carrying a 10 kilo success penalty, which might explain a little bit why Marvin Dienst is leaving him behind, but surely the 10 kilos wouldn't make that much difference. Well, I don't know, but Marvin Dienst is pulling away for Raffaele Marciello to the tune of nearly 2 seconds.
It's a mighty performance so far from Dienst, returning to ADAC GT Masters. If you've been following the ADAC Prototype Cup Germany, new for 2022, you won't be too surprised. He and Berkay Bessler have been exemplary for TalkSport WRT in the LMP3 machinery this year. But Dienst coming back into GT Masters and showing his class in the number 8 car. Goes past Zimmerman at turn 6.
Brilliant stuff. So Marvin Dienst really on fire here. We haven't seen him in GT Masters this year. He knows how to win a race. He sometimes runs in GT4. He's a driver who tends to appear in all sorts of places. He has taken to this like, pardon the pun, a duck to water, but he's up into 5th place. Now, we did say that the gap between 1st and 2nd had come down. Now, whether Engelhart has had a moment or Niederhauser has had a moment remains to be seen, but the gap is now up to 2 seconds again. And Albert Costa Balboa very much in the hunt here is that's not Marciello, it's the other of the Yellow Mambas, isn't it? That is Frankie Bird and Joel Sturm. So Sturm looking to come back after that opening lap issue.
And you can see that the grille of that 84 car of Frankie Bird is all kinds of warped and dislodged. So I think he's had an interesting first lap somewhere in amongst the spray and getting very physical indeed with Joel Sturm in that scrap. He's got Ezekiel Perez-Companc behind him as well in Milena, the Mad Panda Mercedes. That car unfortunately needed an engine transplant yesterday. Engine let go during free practice 1. They missed free practice 2 entirely. Mad Panda have made a mighty effort just to be ready for qualifying this morning and indeed this race.
And it was a lively qualifying session, courtesy of the weather. We are 15 minutes into this race, 45 minutes remaining. This is a sprint format race, 1 hour in duration in total. It is a Porsche leading an Audi from 2 Lamborghinis, and special mention to Maximilian Paul in 4th place, having his best weekend of the year by some distance for Paul Motorsport. Of course, that's the team that used to be T3, now owned and run by Max Paul's father, Tobias. And he running in 4th place. If he could stay there, he would be over the moon with that. Of course, he is sharing with Marco Mappelli, and he's a real entertaining driver. Keep an eye, though, on Marvin Dienst, who is behind the Max Paul car in the pink Mercedes, the number 8. That is the car that's going forwards. The number 1 Audi taking an entirely different line to Raffaele Marciello, or in fact Marciello taking a different line to Zimmerman. But the orange and black Audi is the defending champion car. Tim Zimmerman at the wheel of it. Christopher Mies will be taking that one over after the pit stop.
Let's see, though, if Marciello can now try and finally get the move done on Tim Zimmerman. He was trying it for 5th place earlier on. He ended up losing 6th to Dienst. Let's see now if he can get back up to 6th place by way of getting around Tim Zimmerman. Certainly he's not close enough into turn 1. You can see the drivers dipping away from the wall there, trying to avoid as much of the standing water as possible down the main straight. And there is a lot of standing water through that first sector in particular. Some parts in the middle portion of the circuit are looking a little less torrential than they were, but I think in that first sector, it's still got all the makings of a lake.
While we've been watching this, there have been a couple of other place changes. Arthur Rougier has found a route past Consta Lappalainen, Lamborghini versus Lamborghini. Joel Sturm has found a route past Frankie Bird in the other of the yellow Mambas. So there are positions changing. It does seem to be monstering the car in front into a mistake. It might be the way forwards here. That's exactly what Raffaele Marciello is trying to do with Tim Zimmermann. You can see the rain light burning its way through the mist, but there is no visibility to be had in these cars as they head through the spray, the mist and the murk of this glorious summer's day in August. And it's Raffaele Marciello who is the man on the move at the moment. He's looking for 6th place from Tim Zimmermann. But it's not proving to be easier. This is a very familiar script because you'll remember at the Red Bull Ring, not that many weeks ago, it was Tim Zimmermann in front of Raffaele Marciello. And by the end of the race, Marciello was steaming as he was beating the steering wheel. That was a car we were happy wasn't mic'd up. But these two drivers seem to get together quite a lot. And Tim Zimmermann is very good at keeping Marciello behind him.
Zimmermann certainly putting in a good defensive drive here. Now Dienst is lapping fairly quickly, just ahead of them as well in 5th place in the BWT-backed Trucco Sedvioka, albeit taking a bit of a bump on his way through T1 there. He is just about matching, in fact slightly surpassing the pace of those ahead. We'll see whether he can make any more places up. I heard some talk from other drivers, from other manufacturers, that they didn't think Mercedes would quite have the kind of pace we saw from them at the Nürburgring. However, the wet weather seems to have brought at least the ZVO car alive.
It really has. The weather always scrambles things up a little bit, and it really has done that here, hasn't it? The highest placed Audi in 2nd place, Patrick Niederhauser. They are looking for their 50th win in the ADAC GT Masters. They've been looking for quite a long time, Audi have, for their 50th win. And it seems like a long time coming. At the moment, Christian Engelhart has a handle on this race. He's holding it at about 2 seconds over Patrick Niederhauser, then Albert Costa Balboa, Max Paul, and then Marvin Dees, Tim Zimmermann ahead of Raffaele Marciello. That's what we're watching here. You don't need a stopwatch to tell you how close Marciello is. He had dropped back a little bit. He seems to be finding a little bit of pace, but it won't be long before Marciello hands that car over to Daniel Juncadella.
No, not long at all. But intriguing to see exactly when everyone pits in these conditions. You can see just how nasty the slip is, though, in some of these slower corners, such as T10, Turn 11, where they just went through the effective double hairpin back out onto the final corner of the oval. They really are having to fight for any traction, what little of it is available. Zimmermann going very defensive into Turn 1. Marciello still not quite close enough, and just looking for half an opportunity, perhaps from a Zimmermann mistake, but they don't seem to be forthcoming. Other mistakes, though, rather more forthcoming.
So that is the number 28 car. That is Salman Ovega, and I was chatting to him yesterday, and he said it has been a steep learning curve in GT Masters. He's come into the senior category this year, and he is one of the up-and-coming superstars in GT racing. He's a very young driver, and he is learning, and what a baptism it is of fire and rain and everything else in these conditions. We ride on board again with Raffaele Marciello, still staring at the back of Tim Zimmermann. This is Red Bull Ring all over again.
Oh dear, history doth repeat itself, doesn't it, Raffaele? That was a very scary onboard we saw just now from Cruton, but there goes Zimmermann. Zimmermann off the circuit at turn 8, just slightly misjudged it. They've been taking a wide line around that corner, but of course that leaves little margin for error. Into the grass and into the gravel he goes, comes out just ahead of Yusuvo Vega. The Land Motorsport Audis have not had the best last 2 laps or so.
I have to say, Raffaele Marciello has been waiting 3 months to force Zimmermann into that mistake, and he's finally done it. There was Arthur Rougier closing in on Raffaele Marciello at the time, and it was getting to the stage where if Marciello had made a move on Zimmermann, he could have let Rougier through. Now we will see whether Marciello can open up a gap as Zimmermann drops all the way down. we can see here, you can see in the background, Rougier was getting ready to pounce if Marchiello made that move. So this was a gift that was wrapped for Marchiello, that Zimmerman should throw it into the gravel, and the Yellow Mamba team are very happy with that as Lello finds his way through and picks up that position. It's Marchiello up into 6th place and Arthur Rougier up to 7th. Lapalainen got through as well, so Zimmerman losing about 3 places as a result of that mistake.
Yeah, it was very unfortunate. I think Zimmerman just had to catch a little bit of a slide as he applied the brakes onto the Audi. And Ezekiel Perez compact round. That is at turn 4. He's gone off there in the Mad Panda Motorsport Mercedes. He's really struggling to get the car back in the right direction. Bit of rally crossing, and he will eventually get back onto the circuit coming out of T5. But again, we're seeing just how easy it is to be wrong-footed, especially when you try and turn on the wet curbs.
We almost saw a Mad Panda up on a podium at Zandvoort in the wet conditions, but for the wrong tyre choice in the end. But surely only a matter of time before that car is somewhere near the top of the standings in the ADAC GT Masters this year. But it's not going to be in this race, is it? He's down at the bottom end of the pack now. At the front, Christian Engelhart, well, he continues to hold the gap over Patrick Niederhauser. It has been almost exactly 2 seconds for lap after lap. Niederhauser a little bit closer now, about a 10th closer, but not really making inroads. Albert Costa Balboa, 3 seconds behind them, and then 3 seconds back further is Max Paul, then Marvin Deest, and that is going to be such a result if they can finish like that. The number 8 car. And there's somebody warming up. Now, this is it. Guess the shoes. Who is it? I think Jack Aitken. Thank you.
That was Jack Aitken's take on Flashdance, was it
I
not?
would be signing autographs in the lobby afterwards. Here's Aitken getting ready to take over from Albert Costa Balboa. He's eager. He's eager.
Oh dear, I'm not sure if I like the fact you got the satisfaction out of that.
I know the shoes.
There you go. Everyone has their strong suits in motorsport. We're less than 2 minutes away from the pit window opening, incidentally. So not long at all now until we maybe start to see some dive into the pits. I'm interested to see what Marchiello does, because he does look like he's been struggling all stint long, even though he's been on the offensive just as much as defensive. I do wonder if he might hand this one over to Junkadea in the early doors. Zimmerman may well want to bail out and give the car over to Christopher Mies after that error we saw. There is Zimmerman still in 9th place. He hasn't lost any more time. He's just holding off Yusufa Vega. But given he was in the top 5 a little earlier on, that will sting.
It really will. The teams will be beavering away at their calculators at the moment. What they don't want to do is bring the driver into the pits for the mandatory stop and put them straight back out into traffic. They'll want to find a bit of clear track. That's going to be quite difficult because this is the shortest track of the season, and finding space is going to be difficult. But the timing of the pit stop is critical. We have seen so many races where big changes in order have happened because the team have either come in or come in early or come in late within that window. Zimmerman, though, he looks like he's had enough and would be quite happy to hand that over to Christopher Mies. At the moment, he's been hassled by Yusufa Vega in the defending champion's car. Of course, Yusufa Vega, who shares with defending champion Ricardo Feller, currently in 10th place, but looking for a route past the other of the Montplas by Land Audis. Of course, they are teammates, so don't get together, please, chaps. That would be good.
You see there, the Schubert BMW still not a million miles away from this scrappy. They're keeping a watching brief, is Nicholas Cruton there from P12. They'd like to salvage a top 10 from the poor qualifying performance. They won't mind if it's Cruton or Krohn's car that ends up in the points, or well in the points, as long as someone gets into the top 10. Pit window is now open.
This fight for 9th place continues on. Now Kim Louis Schramm rushing to join that battle. It is the battle of the Audis, 3 of them running together on the track. Zimmerman in the orange and black, Yusufa Vega in the other, but not for long. He's ducked into the pits for his mandatory stop and driver change, as has Nicholas Cruton. He's looking to hand over to Ben Green at the earliest possible opportunity. But on board with Kim Louis Schramm, who has been really red hot this year and hasn't had the results to show for it. He's been very spectacular, but Kim-Louis Schramm stays out. Tim Zimmermann into the pits. We said he might want to hand over to Christopher Mies as soon as possible, and in he comes.
I believe we've had Salmo Vega off track on his in-lap into pits as well. So the other Land Motorsport Audi, the 28 car, Salmo Vega have already seen have a drama in this race, now coming into pit lane after an excursion into the gravel, which we now see here going through turn 8. So in the wars rather was Salmo Vega. Nice slide though, I must say. He is now in the pits.
So the gravel traps here at Lausitzring, not quite as deep as they are as Zandvoort. If you get to the gravel at Zandvoort, you're staying there. But here, if you keep the power on, it seems possible to motor out of it, but not the best of afternoons for Salmo Vega, not the best of afternoons for Florian Spengler either. He's a little bit lively towards the back of the pack. Is he going to keep it on the track? Yes, he is. But still, keeping it pointing in the right direction, that's what matters, and we continue with the pit stops. Now, Christopher Mies, having taken over from Tim Zimmermann, rejoins the track. The number 27 car, Kim-Louis Schramm, is just behind him. He'll be a lap ahead of him.
So we'll see now whether anyone else comes in on this lap, the second time of asking. I'm not seeing anyone within the top few cars coming into pit lane this time, so it seems as though everyone's either going early or middle. Saying that, the Allied Racing Porsche is on its way in, so Joel Stern pitting out of what is currently 12th position, and there goes Costa Balboa out of 3rd place.
Oh, that is absolutely disastrous, and Jack Aitken will be so frustrated as well. The Engelhart Racing Lamborghini, so easy to do. He rejoins just in front of 4th place Max Paul, just behind him, in fact. So the two Lamborghinis are together on the track, but he's got to get all the dirt off those tyres.
Well, he joined just behind him, but he got a great run off of the turn 1 oval after spinning over the grass and took his position back. I've not seen that one happen before, but it was very interesting nonetheless, and showing that Costa Balboa is highly unwilling to lose positions for such a silly mistake. Max Paul watched the Lamborghini go past him about 40 kilometers an hour slower. He probably had a look and see if he was on the pit limiter or something. Let's see if Costa Balboa can keep the car on the straight and narrow now, and indeed whether he maybe goes for a pit stop. Here's a replay though of what happened to him.
So he bumping over the bollard, and he got together with Marcus Winkelhock. So Winkelhock had just taken over from Florian Spengler coming out of the pits. The two cars got together. Hopefully there's been no damage to the Engelhart Racing Lamborghini, and it doesn't look like Costa Balboa has lost too much space on the track either, by some miracle. This is what Adam was just telling us about. Here we go, the launch pad straight back in, and I don't think the stewards can penalise for that. That looked quite legit to me.
I'm not sure. I dread to judge that from my position of very, very limited, let's call it what it is, non-existent power. But certainly that was a unique manoeuvre. He briefly lost the position to Max Paul, but quickly corrected it in his own way. Winkelhock, though, really got himself into an unenviable position there, coming back out into the lead trio of cars after the pit stop for Florian Spengler, and found himself tagging Costa Balboa. In has come Yusufo Vega in the 29, and that's Frankie Bird in a spin as well. Turn 1 catches out another.
So I wonder if the conditions are starting to go downhill. If that were possible, the rain might be falling a bit harder, or it might just be that the tyres are getting worn. But you can see drifting into turn 1. We've got drifting on this weekend here at the Lausitzring as part of the ADAC Family and Friends Festival, but that is not quite what they had in mind. Doesn't appear to have harmed him too much, so he's able to rejoin. He's showing in 12th at the moment, obviously with the pit window open. There is all sorts of changes going on. Marciello is still out. He's got 5 minutes that he has to pit within the next 5 minutes, but at the moment he's still running out 6th on the track, and our leader is into the pits, and that's Marciello. Looked like he was going backwards there. Engelhart, the leader, is heading into the pits. So Christian Engelhart into the pits, the lead now to Patrick Niederhauser. Albert Costa Balboa, despite that moment, up to 2nd. Here we go with the choreography. We're getting good at this, and it is Christian Engelhart, who's out of the car, Ayan Guven, who's in, and the driver, the outgoing driver, helping the incoming driver to get buckled up, and the crutch strap done up, everything plugged in, the netting put across. There is a minimum pit stop time, don't forget, of 65 seconds from pit entry to pit exit. If the driver goes below that minimum time, they will pick up a penalty. So the timing is critical. The drivers have a race logic box on the dashboard, and they can time their pit stop so they cross the line at the critical time. You don't want to be losing seconds by being too slow, but if you go out too fast, you're going to have a problem. That looked pretty perfect to me as Ayan Guven takes over from Christian Engelhart. 0.4 of a second, but that he'll be happy with. Guven now joins the race. We believe this is his first weekend here at the Lausitzring.
Yeah, first races at the Lausitzring for Guven this weekend. If this was my first race lap at Lausitzring, I'd feel a little bit shortchanged. Not the weather conditions I would want on my first appearance at a circuit. I believe this might be the first wet weather race for Luca Engstler in a GT3 car. He's about to take over from Patrick Niederhauser, who briefly inherited the race lead. The 15 Rudtronic Audi is into pit lane. The TCR Germany champion from last year, Luca Engstler, will take over. Marvin Dienst also in, as is Arthur Rougier.
So a stream of cars coming into the pits on this wet surface. So it'll be Jan Marszałkowski who takes over from Marvin Dienst. This is Luca Engstler on standby, excuse me, from Patrick Niederhauser, the 2019 champion. Jumps out of the car. Now we're riding on board in a replay with Max Paul. What drama has happened here? And we're looking back. You just see how murky these conditions are. Looking back at what would have been the Marvin Dienst car before it came into the pits. Well, I say looking, but kind of listening back, really. You just about see the headlights through the mist. Right, so out of the pits comes the number 15. It's Luca Engstler taking over. Now, where will he be in comparison to Ayan Guven? Well, the answer is there in front of you. Pretty close, but not in front. And I would say pit stop's done, that actually maybe the gap has closed up a little. It says Niederhauser on the front of that car, but of course it is Luca Engstler who is at the wheel of the number 15 car. That is what will be potentially the first and second of this race when the pit stops are done. Ayan Guven, Luca Engstler, Jan Marszałkowski in a net potential third. I'm not going to count the chickens too early here as the rest of the cars come into the pits. This is Albert Costa Balboa. He'll be handing over to Jack Aitken. Also Max Paul, he'll be handing over to Marco Mappelli. Also Marciello into the pits, so he's left it quite late in the window. Raffaele Marciello will be handing over to Daniel Juncadella.
Yeah, Juncadella will take that car over. We have had incident investigations ongoing, the 63 and 69 cars. That was, of course, the Winkelhock-Costa Balboa collision that we saw. No further action there. However, pit stop infringement for Sven Muller and the 22 Allied Racing Porsche crew. Now, the time was actually slow, a 1 minute 10 pit stop, a 70-second pit stop in a 65-second window. So there must have been some other technicality that they have gone against within the pit stop. There are a lot of rules and regulations in regards to your pit lane visit in GT Masters. There we see the number 4 car, now in the very capable hands of Jules Gounon. He'll be looking to salvage a point or two from this race as pretty much the last pit stoppers come back out onto the road.
Right, let's see where they rejoin in relation to the leaders. So that's Jan Marszałkowski. And he has managed to stay in front of Daniel Juncadella. Now, these two drivers have been teammates for most of this year. Suddenly, they're in opposing teams. And Jan Marszałkowski will be saying, please be kind to me here, as he jumps in front of the 48 car. So, 5th place for Marszałkowski, ahead of the Marco Mappelli. So, he's taken over from Max Paul Mappelli, a big winner in that. Jack Aitken in 3rd place, despite that spin by Albert Costa Balboa. So, that really has been a bit of a result, because when that car was spinning across the grass, I think Aitken wondered if he was going to get a drive at all.
Very good point, yes. Well, on the timing screens, it's saying that Aitken is into the lead, but of course that updates sector by sector on the actual TV graphics. So the TV graphics are actually more updated than our timing screen here in the commentary box. Just to catch us out, there is Markus Winkelhock in for a second time this race in the Car Collection Motorsport Audi. Now, there was no further action on the collision, so there's no reason for him to be in by the rule book. Question is there something wrong with that car? You'd have to suspect so.
Yes, an unscheduled stop. This is going to be a last place finish for Markus Winkelhock. A real shame, because he's been there or thereabouts all day. But here we see again a replay of the car swapping ends into turn one. I wonder if there was damage as a result of that collision with Albert Costa Balboa earlier on. Maybe not. This is the view from Jules Gounon. Now Gounon, another driver who's been dancing. He's done a nice pirouette. Look, he's cool as a cucumber. Look at his eyes, like, whatever. Carries on. So Gounon, that's where is he in the standings? He is down in 21st place. So the drivers that were second in the championship coming into this weekend, an absolute disastrous day for them so far.
Yeah, not a good day for Jules Gounon. On his first day back in the office, he had a weekend off for the first time in God knows how long last week, as we see the Rutronic 27 Audi in some strife there. Dennis Marshall trying to get around Ben Green and, well, succeeding in doing so, but with a little bit of body rub between the two of them. But yes, Gounon was very happy to have a weekend off. First day back in the office hasn't gone to plan. He does have 13 more consecutive weekends after this, though. Oh, well. So he's got a lot more racing to do in 2022.
It's a life of luxury driving one of these things, isn't it? The incident that you saw between car 10 and 27, so that'll be Ben Green and Dennis Marshall, is under investigation by the race stewards. So they're taking a look at videos of that and will award a penalty if they think there has been an infringement. At the front, Iron Chen Guven, well, it's his first time at the Lausitzring. He has taken to it, hasn't he? I'm not going to keep saying duck to water because it's a cliche. Engstler 2.1 seconds behind. So Guven has opened up that gap somewhat. Jack Aitken in third place. Marco Mappelli in fourth. So the Lamborghinis, third and fourth. Then Jan Marszałkowski in fifth, ahead of Daniel Juncadella. So Marszałkowski, he's having a great time of this at the moment. If he can keep this where it is, he will be very happy. Just looking at the big winners and losers as it just disappears from the screen. But the winner, the leader at the moment, oh, don't speak too soon, Iron Chen Guven has opened up that gap at the front to 2.593 seconds ahead of Luca Engstler. Look at this fight, though. The two former teammates. No love lost here today. Jan Marszałkowski, Daniel Juncadella, the up-and-coming superstar of Marszałkowski against the veteran Daniel Juncadella.
Yeah, Juncadella, whether it's single-seaters in his ascendancy up the junior ladder or indeed in tin tops, largely, or pretty much exclusively with Mercedes, Juncadella has had plenty of highs. The most recent, of course, being that Spa 24 Hours triumph along with Misters Gounon and Marciello. Juncadella then closing in on Marszałkowski at the moment. The two Mercedes with no allegiances to each other. It's Drago ZVO versus Manfilter Team Landgraf for the second consecutive weekend. Manfilter Team Landgraf have the familiar face of Norbert Haug in the garage, watching over proceedings as if it's Bernd Schneider in 2006 all over again. There goes Engstler. Engstler out of second place.
So Luca Engstler, remember, this is his first year in GT Masters. He's come from TCR Germany, a very different kettle of fish. He's kept the car pointing in the right direction. He doesn't look like he's got any damage, but he has dropped down. Jack Aitken has got past. So Engstler down to third, Aitken up to second. That's kind of makes up for Albert Costa Balboa's spin, I should think. They're probably about even there. These are the two Mercedes that we've been following all along. It's Marszałkowski, Juncadella behind. I should think Juncadella was thinking back to when they were teammates at the beginning of this year and saying, I wish I hadn't taught him all those tricks now. Because Marszałkowski is doing a great job staying in front of the yellow Mamba. Marszałkowski in fifth, Juncadella in sixth. Behind them is Frank Pereira and Mick Wieshofer. So a couple of Lamborghinis, then Ricardo Fella and Christopher Mies and Dennis Marshall. So a trio of Audis behind them. This is the view from Marco Mappelli, who's circulating in 4th place.
And poor Luca Engsler now has the very, very experienced Marco Mappelli stalking him for 3rd place. So Mappelli would love to get himself and Paul Motorsport onto the podium. Of course, Paul Motorsport, as we alluded to previously, from the ashes of T3 has come Paul Motorsport, and I believe that would be their inaugural podium under this banner. Mappelli with an alarmingly wide berth at turn 10. Thought he was going straight on, but no, he's just trying to find that wet weather racing line.
Yeah, 7th place is the best that they've managed so far in that car, and that was at Zandvoort. That was a very strong showing. They would be delighted if they could get this on the podium. A lot of pressure on the shoulders of Luca Engsler. I think it's the first time he has run in anger in a race in the wet in a GT3 car. The Rutronic Racing team will have surrounded him with lots of information and lots of training, but at the end of the day, he's the one holding the steering wheel. Now, Jan Marszałkowski, he has got an awful lot of pressure on his shoulders. 18 3/4 minutes of this race remaining. I bet he wishes this race was finishing now, because Daniel Juncadella is putting the heat on. Mercedes versus Mercedes, but Jan Marszałkowski, he is just tiptoeing around the corner. He's not going to make any mistakes. He keeps that pink Mercedes in front of the yellow Mercedes. Through the mist they come. It's Jan Marszałkowski in 5th place, Juncadella in 6th, Frank Pereira closing up to this battle as well in 7th.
There you go, so scrap to stay in the top 5 for Jan Marszałkowski. I was struck yesterday doing a track walk by just how wide that entry into turn 6 really is. I think you could probably fit half the grid side by side through turn 6, and they do that most times on lap number 1. Marszałkowski, though, still holding off Juncadella.
The only problem is it funnels into single file on turn 7.
Yeah.
Yes, images of Pocono Raceway all over again. Yes, there's one. Oh, and a bit of a moment for Jan Marszałkowski. He's got a bit of a slide on. He shuts the door on Daniel Juncadella. So you saw a little bit of a wobble as he put the power on. He is absolutely tiptoeing in that car, but he's doing all that he can to keep the yellow mammoth behind him. Great stuff. So Jan Marszałkowski, still he holds on. They come out of the corner onto turn 12, onto the pit straight. We can see we're up to 28,500 euros in the race lap for Wales in Africa. But there's lots of water here on the track as Juncadella looks to the inside of Marszałkowski. Under braking into turn 1, and Marszałkowski very sensibly deciding discretion is the better part of valor, gives Juncadella enough room, but Juncadella is up into 5th place.
There you go, good driving there from both parties. It was a firm but fair overtaking there from Daniel Juncadella. Gave Marszałkowski no choice but to give him the apex into turn 1. And now Frank Pereira is going to be looking at the back of the pink Drago ZVO car and thinking, yes, it's my time. He dives to the inside at turn 6. Can't quite get it done on that occasion, though. Pereira on the attack.
It is a midsummer's day here in August at the Lausitzring in Germany, would you believe? And we are enjoying race 9 of a 14-race season of the ADAC GT Masters. Looking again at that replay of Daniel Juncadella finding a route past his former teammate, Jan Marszałkowski. Applause in the Manfilter Team Landgraf garage as the yellow Mercedes finds a route past. But Marszałkowski still in 6th place, so doing a good job holding on. As we've already said, Frank Pereira in the Lamborghini queuing up next. Now, Frank Pereira, he's a wise old driver. He's been doing the rounds for a little while now, and he will have a few tricks up his sleeve. Jan Marszałkowski no longer defending from an identical car, but from something very different.
Yes, back in 2003, Frank Pereira beat Esteban Guerrieri and Tony Villander to the Formula Renault Italy Championship. Sorry for dating you a little bit there, Frank, but he is a very, very experienced driver indeed. He's been in the GT racing scene for well over a decade, knows what he's doing. Here is the Dynamic Racing Porsche, a new livery and a new team to GT Masters for this weekend. Where are they running at the moment? The answer is 14th place for Klaus Bachler at the moment.
Klausy Mousy took over from Adrian Delina, who did a great job. Had that incident at the beginning of the race, but they've now worked their way up. They are mid-order, and that's not a bad start to their career, that's not the word, their time in ADAC GT Masters. As we've said already, they're guesting for this round, so today and tomorrow, hopefully there'll be a more permanent fixture next year in the ADAC GT Masters. You're looking there at Luca Engstler defending from Marco Mappelli.
Yeah, of course, Klaus Bachler debuted in GT Masters in 2015. His teammate was one Christian Engelhart, and they actually won on Klaus Bachler's first ever race in ADAC GT Masters. It's certainly not Christian Engelhart's first race in GT Masters today. It could be the first win of the season, though, for Engelhart and Guven. They continue at the sharp end of the order, but look at Marco Mappelli making Engstler sweat.
I would just say, you're talking about Klaus Bachler, he has just put up the fastest lap of the race, 1:36.668. It's like, new team, hey, watch this. So he might be down in 14th place, but Klaus Bachler is the fastest man on the track at the moment. If we were given points for fastest lap, he would have just scored one.
Oh, if only, I imagine he'll be saying at the moment. Klaus Bachler putting in good pace. I think the only driver so far today into the 36s with that 36.68. So clearly he's found his flippers and is on wet weather specialist duty. We ride from the air intake of the Lamborghini there with Marco Mappelli. He looks to the inside of Engstler, still nothing doing. He's just showing him the nose, saying, hey, I'm here, you know. And Luca Engstler says, yes, I'm well aware.
Not so much in an air intake as a snorkel. This is the fight for the last of the podium positions. Luca Engstler, massive pressure for him. He was and is the defending ADAC TCR Germany champion. Of course, front-wheel drive small cars are very, very different from the big monster that is the Audi R8, and he's made the transition across to ADAC GT Masters this year and has been spectacular. So far, second place is the best that he's managed to achieve, along with teammate Patrick Niederhauser, the 2019 GT Masters champion. But he will be driving with his fingertips as he looks to hold on from the number 71 car. And Marco Mappelli, who is always an entertainer. I still keep remembering him going 3 abreast around Sachsenring last year. And he is very experienced. The Italian driver will be using every trick in the book to get past the Audi in front of him.
Engstler is doing a very wise thing out of turn 11 into the bank turn 12, the last corner. Engstler's taking a very wide run out of turn 11. That gives him a great launch down through turn 12 and indeed the main straight. As we see there, Nicky Katzberg getting squirrely. He was under pressure from Klaus Bachler, the fastest man on the circuit, makes up a position, P13 for Bachler.
So Klaus Bachler, he is moving forwards. The two Schubert Motorsport BMWs were running together in 12th and 13th, now 12th and 14th. The leading one of those is Ben Green. 12th position, the highest placed BMW. It is a Porsche leading, a Lamborghini leading, an Audi. So different manufacturers in the top 3. All hail the balance of performance, which is doing a great job here in the ADAC GT Masters. As the 1, 2, 3, but the fight for third place rages on. Marco Mappelli in the background. You can see Daniel Juncadella, he quite fancies getting involved in that. I'm going to look at the gap. It's 4.59 seconds at the moment. He's going to have to work hard to close that up in 11 minutes plus 1 lap, but it only takes these 2 cars to make a little bit of contact, and suddenly Juncadella could be in this battle as well.
Mappelli getting very squirrely under braking there into turn 10. You can see how hard he's pushing. Again, Engstler goes very, very wide out of T11, gets the better launch onto the banking, but then gets a bit squirrely halfway through turn 12. Does that compromise his run enough for Mappelli to maybe get close? Certainly, Mappelli is in the slipstream this time as they approach turn 1, but I don't think he's quite close enough for a lunge. He was later on the brakes, though, in the Paul Motorsport Lamborghini.
The best overtaking opportunity on the track is into turn 1. You do pick up the slipstream if you're close enough, but as we already said, Mappelli was just a little bit too far back, but then you have that really tricky left hand into turn 1, which also goes downhill with a bit of a dodgy camber on it as well. We've seen many cars go missing on that corner. Great camera angle here. I hope that's waterproof, that camera, as we look on from the perspective of Marco Mappelli, looking to the inside of Luca Engstler. Engstler, though, driving very maturely here, not doing anything rash, not doing anything wild. Mappelli trying to push him into a mistake.
Yes, trying very, very hard. And I will say, speaking of drivers that are trying hard, it's going to be a long shot for Jack Aitken. He's got just under 10 minutes to go, but he was 6/10 faster on the previous lap than Ian Guven, and he is closing on this lap too. So keep an eye on the interval between the top two. For now, though, we focus on this podium battle, and Luca Engstler continuing to drive out of his skin to hold off Mapelli.
Great stuff. It's always so close in the ADAC GT Masters. This is the fight for the last of the podium positions. And Luca Engstler drifting around the corner, doing all that he can. Keep an eye on Junkadea in the background in the yellow Mamba, also closing in on this battle. Here we come again up onto the tri-oval and out of turn 12 along the pit straight. Now, is he close enough to pick up a slipstream? He looks closer than he was before, but I don't think close enough to make a move into turn 1. He looks to the outside, trying to monster Luca Engstler into missing a braking point or braking late and going deep, but Engstler holds it all together. Perfect line into the corner. Mapelli still staring at the back of that Audi.
And Mapelli may have the opportunity here because it's looked like Engstler struggled around this section for the last couple of laps. Mapelli is side by side, not quite able to get to the inside of T5, though. He's been trying very hard at turn 6 for several laps to get through. He's always shown the nose, but I don't think he's going to be close enough. Continues to hold on to third place, does Luca Engstler, but it is tooth and nail stuff.
We said we'd keep an eye on the lead gap as well. 3.365 seconds is the gap, but Aitken putting in personal bests in sector 1 and closing in. Is it going to be enough? I think it's going to be a bit of a stretch, not only to catch him, but also to find a route past. But the fight for third is well and truly on and raging. Luca Engstler still holding off Marco Mapelli. Then it's Daniel Junkadea. Jan Marszałkowski looks to have fended off the attentions of Franck Pereira for the time being, because Franck Pereira has Mick Viso for company. We're riding with Jules Gounon in an uncharacteristic down in 19th place. That is a place he will not be happy about. Challenging the Puhaka driver, so Yuso Puhaka in the Mad Panda Motorsport and Mercedes, who took over from Ezequiel Perez-Campagne, making his debut here in the ADAC GT Masters.
That's a move for third place for Marco Mapelli. Has he got the run this time? Certainly he was ahead of Engstler at the line. Engstler trying to get around the outside though at turn 1. Can't quite do it. I'm guessing that Engstler once again struggled for traction out of the final corner. We've seen him do it a couple of times, and on this occasion Mapelli has struck.
Also, Franck Pereira has got past Jan Marszałkowski, so he's up into 6th place. And Klaus Bachler has got past Ben Green. So suddenly, with 7 minutes of this race remaining, we're getting a number of passes going on. So drivers still pushing, still putting the pressure on, but look at Marco Mapelli, the best we've seen him all season. He is loving these conditions. Luca Engstler, still a good job in 4th place. Daniel Junkadea closing in on him still. The gap, 2.6 seconds now between Engstler and Junkadea. Here is a replay of that move. You can see the back end of the Engstler car just struggling for traction out of the corner, and it is Marco Mapelli who's through. He steals that position. Engstler keeping nice and close to try and take advantage if there is a mistake, but he doesn't find a route past. The Paul Motorsport team are delighted.
Yeah, I think Engstler finally, that wide line through turn 11 came back to bite him, because on that occasion Mapelli managed to draw alongside, prevented Engstler from getting that mighty run down the main straight, as we continue to see Wieshofer now under pressure and pressuring. Marszałkowski has ended up with a great many cars behind him. Wieshofer and Feller now queuing up behind the Mercedes down to 7th place.
I should think that Marszałkowski is willing on Ricardo Feller, because as long as he's there, Wieshofer can't really make too much of a lively challenge on Jan Marszałkowski. He's running in 7th place at the moment, which is a great job, but we are looking there at 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, all running through together. These cars are all on the same lap. Jan Marszałkowski at the front of that queue. Just ahead of him is Franck Pereira, who got past, and a spin. So that is Wieshofer, who's just lost it under pressure. That's going to allow Ricardo Feller through and Christopher Mies.
Oh, Mick Wieselfer there just lost it through turn 2 there, and that has cost him dear. Well, you said that Marszałkowski would be willing on Riccardo Fella. He's now going to be saying, actually, scratch that. Please don't catch me. Wieselfer has given the position to Fella. Fella up to 8th place, and he'll now challenge Marszałkowski. Let's just see what happened. Did he clip the white line or something like that? Yeah, and it just unsettled the rear end. A big, long, prolonged slide. He did, however, slow Riccardo Fella down in amongst that. He may have given Marszałkowski just a little lifeline and a bit of a cushion.
You can see these drivers. God dear, Albert Costa Balboa, it looks like thunder there. You can see these drivers are absolutely driving on the edge all the way round every lap. There is no quarter taken or given. But look at this, the leader, Arjen ten Guven, is being reeled in. 2.897 seconds was the gap last time, 2.1. So we said he was closing in. There's 4 minutes and 20 seconds plus 1 lap. Jack Aitken is closing in. He's quicker. You see he's quicker in the sectors, isn't he?
Yeah, half a second quicker in the final sector alone there was Jack Aitken. So maybe Guven made a slight mistake, or Aitken is just that good. But nonetheless, 8 tenths in 1 lap is a mighty, mighty gain. However, that hasn't been what we've seen lap on lap. It's been 3 to 4 tenths a lap. So I just wonder if Guven has maybe made a bit of an error there. There is Marszałkowski. That gap didn't last long, did it? Fella has already closed in on the back of the 8 car.
3 3/4 minutes of this race remaining. It is still all to play for. Arjen ten Guven and Christian Engelhart looking for their first win of the season. It'll be the first win ever in GT Masters for Arjen ten Guven. Leading the way further back, here's a challenge. The defending champion of ADAC GT Masters, Riccardo Fella, a wise driver, a very talented driver, putting the pressure on Jan Marszałkowski. Marszałkowski was in GT4 last year. He absolutely shone. He's shining in GT3 this year, but you can see these conditions are his worst nightmare. When he pulled his curtains back this morning, he would not have been happy to have seen the rain. He's doing a bit of rallycross, but somehow he kept it in front of Riccardo Fella, and that is why Fella is on his back bumper. Now getting onto the back bumper of the leader is Jack Aitken, closing on Arjen ten Guven.
That's got to be about a second between them now. It's gone down massively once again. The gap now confirmed at 1.022 of a second. It has closed up by over a second in the last lap alone. We thought that perhaps it was a bridge too far for Jack Aitken, but no, he's cooking on gas in these mixed conditions, and he is pressing on to the back of Arjen ten Guven. Guven, as you rightly say, he hasn't won so far this year. He knows what victory and champagne tastes like from his time in Super Cup and Porsche Carrera Cup Deutschland. He wants that first ADAC GT Masters first place trophy on his mantle.
You know Jack Aitken, though, is not going to give up. Jack Aitken is going to give it everything, because second place is first loser in his book. He is now following every single track of Guven's car. He's closing in. Surely there is going to be a challenge within the next 2 minutes plus 1 lap. Guven under so much pressure, the most pressure he's been under in GT Masters since he joined, I should think. Jack Aitken, who took over from Albert Costa Balboa, he said yesterday he thought his championship challenge was over for this year, but he is now challenging in second place. Championship leader Daniel Juncadella, along with Raffaele Marciello, is down in 5th place. Here comes the challenge for the lead, going the long way round the outside. Jack Aitken ducks back to the inside. He keeps it on the track. Arjen ten Guven just holding on. Onto the tri-oval they come. Right, now is the chance to pick up a slipstream. The two cars absolutely glued together. Jack Aitken along the pit straight. He's going to try and pick up a slipstream into turn 1. Along they come, past the pits. Guven just in front. Aitken has a look to the outside, not quite close enough.
We've had dramas further back between Wieselfer and Marszałkowski. They're both stranded between T7 and T8. There are 2 stranded cars at T7 and turn 7, turn 8 at the second sector split. So those 2 cars could cause a yellow flag. They could cause something worse. So Aitken could be in the balance here. Will he actually get the opportunity to challenge for this lead? He's certainly doing it at the moment. There's the yellow flags we discussed.
So back onto the tri-over they come, and they cannot overtake when they go past turn 7. They have to back off. Jack Aitken has lost it. Jack Aitken spins. just loses traction. He gathers it up. He's ahead of Marco Mappelli by some distance, so he stays in second place. This is the get out of jail free for INJ Guven. Albert Costa Balboa still looking like thunder. And there's a car in the wall, and that is Mick Wieshofer banging the roof of the car. You can see it is wrecked. He's clearly got together with Jan Marszalkowski.
Yeah, those two had a collision off camera a lap ago, so that has caused a big yellow flag. So there you see Marszalkowski stoved in rear at turn 7. He's been there for over a lap already. That's going to be so uncomfortable because the cars do take a wide berth around turn 7 in these wet conditions anyway. I was wondering whether Jack Aitken's attempts would be halted by this yellow flag. They've been halted by that spin. There it is, Marszalkowski getting the hit from Wieshofer. We see it from Dennis Marshall. I think Marszalkowski made an error, came back onto the circuit, and that is when he collided with Wieshofer.
I should think Jan Marszalkowski needs to stop walking under ladders, because once again he is seen pointing in the wrong direction at the Emil Frey Lamborghini. Well, that looks a bit second-hand, doesn't it? The aerodynamic advantage, not an advantage. The Emil Frey team, and you can see Albert Costa Balboa. I don't know what he's looking at. I'm not going to try and lip read that one, but it might be that, or it might have been Jack Aitken's spin. But Mick Wieshofer's frustration, well, you can see that, can't you, as he bangs the roof of the car. And we are into the final lap of racing for the ADAC GT Masters.
Ayhan Guven with 3.6 seconds over Jack Aitken, courtesy of that spin for Aitken. The final 5 minutes have been dramatic. I've been watching things happen in the pit window, in the window of this commentary box. We've been watching it happen on screen. It's all kicked off in the final moments, but it's kicked off in favour of Ayhan Guven. It looks as though his first race at the Lausitzring could be a hugely successful one. Juncker Deyer still under pressure from Frank Pereira as well, so no one in the top 5 is safe at the moment. Guven, though, just a few corners away.
These drivers were pleased to see the checkered flag, you just know that. Towards turn 10 comes Ayhan Guven, our race leader. Jack Aitken now too far back to do anything about it. Marco Mappelli in 3rd place, but close back in on him is Luca Engstler, Daniel Juncker Deyer and Frank Pereira. But it looks like this is how it's going to finish. Ayhan Guven out of turn 12 in the wet, the spray, the grey, the murk. Is Ayhan Guven who takes his first ever win in the ADAC GT Masters for Team U Sport Wagon Technique, along with co-pilot Christian Engelhart. We look to see who's second across the line. It is Jack Aitken, then Marco Mappelli leading this queue of cars. Luca Engstler, Daniel Juncker Deyer will be next across the line, and then Frank Pereira rounding out the top 6. What a wonderful race for the ADAC GT Masters.
That race had everything, didn't it? Drama, aplomb, battling on the circuit, cars skidding off onto the grass, and great to see Christian Engelhart there in the embrace. And the U Sportwagen Technik Garage will be the party's own today. It's their first win of the 2022 season, and great performance from both parties. Guven in the wet conditions, taking his first win in ADAC GT Masters, and I'm sure that he is going to be an animated man on the podium. Surely the delight is going to spill out of him here at the Lausitzring. He's driving back now to the podium. I'm sure he's going to be breathing some heavy breaths and some sighs of relief as he runs back towards the waiting cheers from the Deuce Sportswagen Technique team. Look at him punching the air, beating his chest. He can barely keep himself in the seat. Good to see that he's as happy as we hoped.
I'm pretty sure that's the first ever win for Team U Sportwagen Technique as well. I think it might be the first podium for Max Paul, actually. So lots of firsts going on here. That last one, subject to confirmation. Pretty sure it's the first one for Team U Sportwagen Technique. I've never seen Albert Costa Balboa look so disappointed with second place in my life. I think with the amount of rally crossing they did, second was a result. The result is Christian Engelhart and Ayhan Guven who take the win after a dramatic race ahead of Albert Costa Balboa, Jack Aitken. Third was Marco Mappelli and Max Paul. Here are the rest of the results scrolling through your screen now. Turn your mic on. Wow, that was impressive. I got a bit excited there. That was fantastic. What a great race for the ADAC GT Masters. Recognised as one of the most challenging GT3 series in the world, and really the competition is so fierce, and you can see that there is so much talent, you can see so much emotion, and at last the monkey is off the back for Engelhart and Guven after a couple of rounds where they haven't shone as much as they'd like to. The top step of the podium awaits.
It's the first win of the season for Porsche in general in the 2022 ADAC GT Masters Championship, which means it's the 38th win for the marque that has been present in GT Masters from race number 1 in 2007. That draws them ahead of Callaway as the second winningest manufacturer in GT Masters history. Funny enough, it's Lamborghini on 38, Callaway on Porsche on 38, Callaway on 37, and Lamborghini on 36. Very close in the all-time winning list for the manufacturers.
We have stats aplenty here in the ADAC GT Masters. Fantastic. You've been willing that one on, haven't you? Porsche on the top step, then 2 Lamborghinis. And look at that for the point standings. Engelhart and Guven just 7 points adrift of Marciello. Gunon and Schiller, well, that was a day they want to forget. 27 points back. And Albert Costa-Balboa and Jack Aitken 30 points away from them. Nicholas Cruton and Ben Green still very much in it. Yusufa Vega, Sven Muller, Joel Sturm, they're not that far behind as well. The championship is still very much alive. Anybody who thought that Raffaele Marciello was going to come here and do another win and a second were very much mistaken, because the Lausitzring has bitten quite hard. But Jack Aitken and Albert Costa-Balboa, they are ecstatic. And there is Max Paul, and that is a just reward, along with Marco Mappelli, for fantastic racing.
I must say, I was rather hoping that it would be a Lamborghini win before a Porsche win, so we could have 3 manufacturers tied on 37 wins in the all-time standings. But I am delighted for Guven and for you, Sportwagen Technique, their massive result today.
And I should think Callaway are in a rush to get back here before too long as well. There is third place, Max Paul and Marco Mappelli for Paul Racing and the Lamborghini Huracan. Second went to Jack Aitken and Albert Costa-Balboa. Another Lamborghini Huracans, this time for Emil Frey Racing. But the top step of the podium for the first time, Team U Sportwagen Technique, with Ayhan Guven and Christian Engelhart at the wheel. They are the victors in race 9 of the season for the ADAC GT Masters. So celebrations in the pits. The fastest lap of the race was another Porsche in the hands of Klaus Bachler. So Dynamic Racing finishing 10th place, which is a great debut in the ADAC GT Masters. Hopefully that'll encourage them to come back for more in 2023. They've still got another race tomorrow, of course, as we look at Marco Mappelli and Max Paul. I'm guessing that will be in German or Italian, so we always like to listen in. It always feels very rude, but that's where we garner a lot of information.
It's a very multinational podium in general, isn't it? With Turkish-German combination on the top step, British and Spanish on the second step, and then German and Italian on the third step.
Wow, 5 nationalities, is that in 6 drivers? That's quite impressive. So the drivers are just getting ready, receiving the congratulations. The weather, once again, providing us, when you see the rain, you just know it's going to be exciting. There's no disappearing off into the distance here. And Ayhan Guven and Christian Engelhart will be forever grateful for that little spin, both from Costa-Balboa and from Aitken during the race. Balboa doesn't look too delighted. Aitken looks reasonably happy with that second place. They are still in the championship hunt. There is no doubt about that. And congratulations to the third place drivers in the identical Lamborghini Huracan, albeit from a different team. And we just listen in.
course, as a factory driver, you never know which team you're going to be enlisted to next. So you never want to make enemies of a manufacturer's stablemate, just on the off chance you end up driving for them next year. Might get a bit awkward.
Might just.
The podium presentation is coming up soon. I think that Guven and Engelhart might be continuing their celebration somewhere and having to be collared by an ADAC official. Do you want your trophy or not?
I might drop into the used Sportwagen Technique tonight, garage tonight. That might be quite interesting. Jack Aitken has been such a valuable addition to our grid this year. Of course, the driver who has been in Formula One and been there or thereabouts for so long. He had that nasty injury at Spa last year. It's been great. He's bounced back from that in style and has entertained. And he and Albert Costa Balboa are definitely yin and yang by their own admission. Aitken brings quite a measured approach. I think Albert Costa Balboa a little bit wilder, and they balance each other up perfectly. They are a potent combination. As we look at a replay of Aitken doing that little pirouette and keeping it out of the barriers and out of the walls and out of the gravel traps. And he recovered very well. Quick thinking, get it in gear, put it in the right direction and carry on. And that was the view from Marco Mepelli as he took that position away from Luca Engsler. So wet weather really was the story. And there is, well, you just wonder what Jan Marszałkowski has got to do to get a break as we see the bodywork flying up into the air. The stewards will no doubt take a look at that, and you can see the Emil Frey Racing Garage. Of course, Mick Wieshofer running for Emil Frey as well, so mixed emotions for them in that garage.
Ah, they found them. Engelhart and Guven have emerged.
We're getting wet out here.
Somewhere near the podium. And they will be taking part in the podium presentations in just a moment. There were plenty of dramas in that race. Emil Frey will have had palpitations all round in those last couple of laps with Wieshofer and Aitken's incidents. But for Paul Motorsport, it's really a day of celebration.
Never mind about them. I've been having palpitations watching it. There is Paul Motorsport to the third step. Marco Mepelli and Max Paul. Jack Aitken, Albert Costa Balboa offering their congratulations, the Emil Frey duo. But look at this. There is going to be some partying tonight. Ian Chen Guven, well, we knew they were almost certainly going to take a win at some point this year. That duo is potent. They are in the hunt for the championship without a doubt. This, of course, is the home race for Max Paul. He lives just up the road in Dresden, so he knows his way around Lausitzring, and he will have loved that podium, third step of the podium. Trophies are presented by Dr. Gert Enzer, the sports president of the ADAC. And big smiles on the 2020 champion, Christian Engelhart, of course. The second place trophies presented to Jack Aitken and Albert Costa Balboa. And here come the third place trophies. Very nice trophies too. Marco Mepelli and Max Paul. So the spectators have gathered here in great numbers for the Family and Friends Festival. And it is quite a festival of motorsport here, despite the wet weather. Lots to do. We've had drifting, we've had every kind of racing. We had face painting, bouncy castles, go-karting, you name it. It's all been happening here at the Lausitzring. It has been a festival of motorsports and a festival of family. Big crowd here, have enjoyed it and endured the rain, which has to be said has probably provided us with a more exciting race than we might have had.
I think based on Saturday's racing, if you're anywhere within the locality, come here tomorrow. If you're here today, also come here tomorrow. We're going to see some more fabulous stuff from GT Masters on Sunday, I have no doubt.
So qualifying will be tomorrow morning. I looked at the weather forecast. There is the potential that it could be something similar to today. It was kind of I've had contradicting weather forecasts. Whichever way, wet or dry, it is going to be exciting.